Welcome, YouTube, to another episode of the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and on today's episode, we'll be covering the Southwest Division. So I'll be talking about the Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, the San Antonio Spurs, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, if you missed last episode I covered the Pacific Division. So that covered the Los Angeles Lakers, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings, and the Golden State Warriors, okay? Now, if you did miss that video link's right above me if you want to go ahead and check that out. Now, before I get on talking about today's episode, I kind of just want to preview next episode with you guys. So next episode, we'll be closing out the Western Conference, and we'll be talking about the Northwest Division. So that consists of the Denver Nuggets, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Utah Jazz, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, so you're not going to want to miss that episode. I think that episode is going to be jam-packed with a lot of information. I think it's going to be one of my best episodes personally. So you're not going to miss next episode. Now, before I deep dive onto today's episode, I kind of just want to give you guys kind of a preview of what I'm going to be talking about. So if you're just now checking out my videos, I'll be covering 5 topics. Now, the 5 topics that I'll be covering consist of, I'll be talking about the team's contract situations, players that I'll be keeping my eyes on, watching for this season. I'll also be talking about the team's draft capital, the team's floor and ceiling. Now, with the team's floor and ceiling, it will be somewhat vague because I don't want to give away my personal predictions, which I'll be doing pretty soon in the next few episodes because we're getting closer to the season tipping off. But so yeah, I don't want to give away too much there. So just keep in mind, floor and ceiling, I'll be vague, and I'll remind you guys as I go through each team. But also, lastly, I'll be going through rookie expectations if the team has any rookies on the team. But even with that, I'm trying to be somewhat vague there because I also don't want to give away my potential rookie of the year, who I think are candidates in my dark horse and stuff. So again, just being vague. So just keep that in mind as we go through everything, okay? Now, the first team that I'm going to cover is going to be the Dallas Mavericks. So last season, Dallas finished with a record of 52-32. They finished 10th in offensive efficiency and 18th in defensive efficiency. Now, I'm going to go over the team's contract situation with you guys, okay? So Dallas currently right now, they're barely under the first apron, and they're under the second apron by $11 million. Players in their contract situations on the Dallas Mavericks. So Kyrie has a player option for next summer. So this is kind of a contract year for Kyrie. I know he really likes being in Dallas. So I expect him to, first and foremost, be available for the team. And also, I think he's going to continue to perform. So I'm not too worried about Kyrie. But yeah, so that's something to keep out for. He has a player option next summer. Another player is Quentin Grimes. He's a restricted free agent. Quentin Grimes, this will be year 4 for him. It's a contract year for him as well. So Quentin Grimes, I'm going to talk more about him later, so I ain't going to say too much right now. But yeah, Quentin Grimes, restricted free agent next summer. Dwight Powell has a player option next summer. Dante Exum has 1 year left on his deal. Spencer Dinwiddie has 1 year left on his deal. Jaden Hardy has 1 year left on his deal as well. Rookie expectations for the Dallas Mavericks, they have no rookies. But last summer, they drafted Derek Lively, and I actually talked about Derek Lively a lot last summer in my audio podcast. I would go ahead and check that out if I were you guys. Go check it out in the descriptions. Again, it's only audio, and it's only on Spotify, so I'm sorry about that, but I was talking about some really good stuff in that pod. I listened to it a couple weeks back, and you should go back and check that stuff out because I ain't going to say I predicted, but I kind of forecasted a lot of the stuff that ended up happening in the season. So I'll go ahead and check that out for you guys. But yeah, so that's the team's rookie expectations. So team's floor and ceiling. Again, if you're just now tuning into the episode, I'm being vague because I don't want to give away my personal opinions quite yet. Again, pretty soon here in the next couple episodes, I'll give my actual predictions. So being vague, okay? So for me, this team's floor is a competitive first round series, and I think their ceiling is winning the NBA title, okay? Now, my opinion about Dallas, I really like some of the tweaks that they made to their roster. I believe they did get somewhat better shooting and even slightly physically better defensively. Adding for shooting-wise, they added Klay Thompson over Tim Hardaway. They added Najee Marshall, and they lost Derrick Jones. But I think the combination of Grimes, a motivated Klay Thompson, and Najee Marshall should help this team defensively on the perimeter improve. They weren't horrible necessarily in the playoffs defensively, but they for sure, adding those 3 players, I think are going to bring an essence of real physicality on the perimeter, because Najee Marshall is a little bit bigger than Derrick Jones physically. I think mechanically, like tool-wise, I think Derrick Jones is a better defender, but I think physicality-wise, Najee Marshall is going to be a lot better for this team, okay? I do expect this team to compete for a top 13 spot defensively, and that's because of what I just pointed out to you. Quentin Grimes, I think, is a above-average defender. I think Najee Marshall is as well, and I think Klay Thompson being motivated, he will be as well. You know, last year, Klay did get picked on quite a bit, but I think this year he's going to really be motivated, I think, in totality in his game. I think he's just going to be motivated. And then offensively, I don't necessarily expect him to be top 5, but I do expect them to get to that 7 to 10 range, really coming from being, I mean, they're 10th, right? They finished 10th last year. I think they will gradually improve offensively, but I expect their jump to more so be maybe on the defensive end with this team. My players to watch for Dallas is obviously their number 1 guy, Luka. Luka being, I kind of seen some pictures of Luka. He's slightly out of shape, but what I've noticed about Luka over the years, he'll come into the season out of shape, and then by Christmas time, January time, this dude, you know, he's fine, you know. So, but that's something I'm keeping my eyes on. You know, anything can happen, and he did have a long summer, you know, traveling and whatnot. He didn't compete in the Olympics, so that might have helped, but he did compete longer, going into the NBA Finals and stuff, but. Yeah, so that's just something I'm paying attention to is him getting his weight under control earlier in the season. Another player I kind of just named him earlier, I didn't really talk about him much, was Jaden Hardy. I personally really like what I saw out of Jaden Hardy coming off the bench last year for this team. He showed that he could be a potential playmaker off the bench for this team with a little scoring punch, but he's going into year 3 or year 4. I believe Jaden Hardy's going into. I think it's year 3 for Jaden Hardy. But I expect him to potentially have a larger role for this team, really, since obviously they're getting rid of Tim Hardaway. It'll be interesting to see what the whole Dinwiddie situation looks like with this team. But yeah, I'm interested to see if he can become a bona fide playmaker for this team off the bench, because I did like what I seen at him last year, and then even like the couple minutes he was getting in the playoffs, I really liked what I seen out of Jaden Hardy. And I was a fan of his when he was back in high school. He was the number 1 rated shooting guard in high school, and then he skipped college, ended up going to, I believe he played for the G League Ignite, I believe. He was like one of the first people to play for them, and he didn't perform that well in the G League, but I really liked what I seen out of him there. Just in the NBA right now, you know, he's kind of just finding his way, and so that's somebody I'm going to be keeping my eyes on and see if he can make that next leap this upcoming year. Obviously, another player, I just named him. I think Klay Thompson's going to come out very hungry offensively and defensively. I think he's just going to be out to prove the Warriors wrong, prove even other people that was making fun of him wrong. I expect a motivated Klay this year, and anything under that to me is going to be a disappointment. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be a disappointment. If Klay Thompson can't get his shooting back to that 44 to 46% from the field and back to his normal 41 to 42% from 3 and giving us, you know, at least plus side defense, he don't got to be what he used to be, but at least plus side defense, then I think it's kind of a failed year for him. But I do think he's going to do it. That's the thing. I believe he's going to do it. Okay, another player, I kind of just named him, is Quentin Grimes, finding his rhythm. You know, he's bounced around a little bit. I believe in Detroit, he really didn't get a chance. I think in New York, I don't think New York was too much pressure, but I believe the way Tibbs was using him and, you know, kind of keeping him in the doghouse a lot, keeping him on a very short, you know, string. I just don't think that was good for a young player, you know, coming into the NBA. I just don't think that was good for him at all. So I think being with Jason Kidd, somebody that's more of a player coach, I think that's really going to benefit him. And then also, he's going to get wide open shots, you know, playing with Luka, playing with Kai, and even playing with Klay Thompson. He's going to get wide open shots, and I'm excited to see what he does being in Dallas' system, being able to play with Kyrie and Luka. I expect Quentin Grimes to have a bounce-back year and kind of a resurgence for his career being in Dallas. Okay, this team's draft capital, 2025 and 2026, they own it. 2027, they own, if it's top 2 protected, they own it. 3 to 30, it goes to Charlotte. 2028, Oklahoma owns swap rights with them in 28. 2029, the 2 most favorable of Dallas, Houston, and Phoenix goes to Houston, and then the other one goes to Brooklyn, okay? And then 2030, San Antonio owns swap rights with them in 2030. And then the most favorable of, it's kind of a lot. So most favorable of Dallas, San Antonio, Minnesota, 2 through 30 goes to San Antonio, okay? And then 2031, they own their pick. So they have a little bit of flexibility there. We'll see if Dallas makes any other moves, okay? So that's the Dallas Mavericks. Now, if you feel like I missed out on something with Dallas, comment down below your opinion about Dallas. If you feel like I didn't talk about certain players, or even if you liked what I said about the Mavericks, let me know what your opinion is about the Mavericks down in the comment section below, okay? Next team is the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio last year finished 22-60. Offensively, they finished 26th. Defensively, they finished 22nd. And now we're going to talk about their contract situation. They're under both aprons. And if you don't know anything about the aprons, look it up on Google. I don't have the time to go through it, okay? It's a lot. It's very, very complex, okay? So I'm going to go over the contract situations. CP3 is signed to a one-year deal, so he got 1 year left on his deal. Trey Jones has got a 1 year deal. Jeremy Sohan's is extension eligible next summer. Blake Wesley is extension eligible next summer. Charles Bassey has 1 year left on his deal. Sandro has 1 year left on his deal. I'm not saying his last name. It's too complicated. Okay, so that's Sandro. And then Sidi Sioko, he has a non-guaranteed contract, okay? So rookie expectations. I was very fortunate enough to go to the national title game this year. It was against Purdue versus UConn. So I was fortunate enough to be able to be in attendance for that. And what an experience. Okay, I'm going to try to go to next year's when it's in San Antonio. But this year was in Arizona. But that's besides the point. So that brings me to the prospect I'm about to talk about. And that's Stephon Castle. I expect him to make a defensive impact right away. I also expect him to be mentored by CP3 because I know Castle envisions himself as a point guard. So I really expect him to be working alongside CP3 quite a bit. But I think right off the jump, he'll be defensively making an impact. Castle's somebody that can guard 1 through 3 right now. And I think if he bulks up a little bit, he'll be able to switch out on some fours really in today's games. He'll be able to guard some fours. But I do believe this year he'll be coming off the bench, and then next year I expect him to start alongside Wimpy and I'm blanking on and Devin Vassell is what I expect, and then we'll see what happens, in the draft and whatnot. I'm not gonna go too crazy about that, but yeah. So right now, that's what I kind of expect from him. My main thing I'm gonna be watching out for him is his shooting numbers. His free throw numbers are not bad. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe he shot like 75 to 76% from the free throw line. So I expect his 3-point numbers to be about league average. Maybe not this first year, maybe not. We'll see, but I believe for his career, he'll probably be about that 36, 37% from 3 is what I expect from him. But yeah, I'll be looking out for that. Next thing I'll be looking out, and then also another rookie they drafted was Harrison Ingram, I think his name is. I think he's going to be in the G League, so that's why I'm not going to spend too much time talking about him with you guys. Team's floor and ceiling, just to let you guys know, if you're just now tuning into the video, I'm being vague. I don't want to give away my personal predictions. But that being said, I'll be giving my predictions at a later date, probably with the next couple episodes. This team's floor/ceiling, to me, I believe that their floor is the lottery. Again, I think their ceiling is a potential play-in/first-round exit is this team's ceiling, in my opinion. Now, going more deeper dive into my opinion, again, I'm trying not to say too much, but I do believe that the introductions and the additions of Harrison Barnes, CP3 coming out, I think it's going to be really good for these kids just to get a sense of how it feels to be around a champ like Harrison Barnes, but also a very savvy on the court coach in CP3. I think we're going to see that, I think, pretty early on, even just the way they practice. So there's going to be things that are just not going to show up in the stat sheet with these dudes coming along. And just for full disclaimer, I have been knowing about Victor Wembanyama. Man, that's a tongue twister. Since he was about 15, 16 years old, I've been a fan of his, and I've been following him ever since. At a later date, because my phone right now, I'm using my phone for my camera, so I can't really show you guys, but I literally have an Instagram post that I saved when I very first discovered Wimpy, and so people don't think I'm some bandwagon or something. I've been knowing about Wimpy, okay? Just so you guys know. But my only concern with him is him playing another 70 games this year. Dude's 7'5". Okay, so realistically, do we really expect a guy that's 7'5" to give us 75 games a year or 70 games for the rest of his career? I don't expect it. I know Wimpy is somebody that is he cares a lot about his body, okay? Wimpy takes care of his body very well. So, and I know he does like certain workouts and certain things that really highlight his lower body, his ankles, his feet. I know he does all these things with his fingers and stuff. I know he does different things, but I'll be lying to you guys if I said I'm not worried about that. So that's something that every year will always be on my concerns for this team. It's always going to be Wimpy, but that's something that I will be keeping, and that's kind of a part of my opinion about this team. I also think they shouldn't be trying to compete too much this year. I think they should be trying to be in the lottery one more time. I think would be really beneficial for this team, because I personally would really like to see them pick up a guy like Con Nupeli from Duke. I think he's a sleeper. If you don't know about Con, look up Con. He actually led the EYBL in scoring his senior year. Con, to me, is going to be a sleeper for Duke, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Con, but also like a guy like Liam McNeely at UConn. He's going to be a freshman. I think he would be really good next to Wimpy. Just knockdown shooters. These are guys that are knockdown shooters. I really would like to see a knockdown shooter next to the mixture of Castle and Wimpy. I would really like to see that sharpshooter next to those players. So those are guys that I can really envision this team drafting, just based on, because I don't think they're going to get another top 3 pick. I do think San Antonio's probably, in this upcoming draft, probably is going to be between that 7 to 11 range is probably where I would slot them. And one of these guys are going to be available at that point, I think. So I guess I'm kind of forecasting next year's draft already, so I guess it's on the record. But yeah, so that's my opinion about the Spurs. I don't think they should be trying to compete too much this year. My players to watch for is Keldon Johnson. Can he improve his three-point shooting? He shot 35% last year. Is there, and he's kind of entering his prime. I don't have it in front of me. I think Keldon Johnson's 24, I believe. I believe Keldon Johnson's like 24, 25. So he's still at the early parts of his prime, but can he improve on that? Adding Harrison Barnes, adding CP3, even adding, Wimpy in year 2. Will that allow the floor to be more space for him? Well, will be more space for him. What am I saying? But also, is he going to improve? That's something I'll be paying attention to. Another player is, can Chris Paul do for Vassell what he did for Devin Booker? It's something I'll be watching out for, okay? I'm a fan of Devin Vassell, and so I'm interested to see if CP3 can get... CP3 for sure is going to get him easier shots, but also I expect Vassell's field goal percentage and three-point percentage to slightly improve with CP being on the court with them, okay? Another player, and the last player I want to talk about for the San Antonio Spurs, is Jeremy Sohan. Him accepting his role, and being a star in his role. I know last year they were kind of just using him as a Swiss Army knife, having him run the 1, 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. I just thought that was too much. I don't think that's him necessarily. I think Jeremy Sohan is more so a 4. A 4 with potential to give you a couple minutes maybe at the 5 or the 3, but predominantly he's a 4 man, okay? And I think he's not an offensive 4. I think he's more of someone that can do a little bit of passing, predominantly be defensively minded. Like, the jury for me is still out on if Jeremy Sohan's going to be the long-term starting 4 next to Wimpy, okay? The jury's out for me, in my opinion. We'll see what happens this year. He's somebody I'll be keeping my eyes on, and if he's going to be out on the floor, he's going to have to improve his 3 ball if he wants to be a long-term starter. So that's something else about Jeremy Sohan I'll be paying attention to, okay? Now I want to talk about this team's draft capital. The team's draft capital, 2025, they own their pick. They own Atlanta's pick. And then they also get Charlotte's pick if it's 15 through 30. And then they also get Chicago's pick if it lands 11 through 30, okay? 2026, they own swap rights with Atlanta. And then if the Chicago thing is not settled in 2025 and 2026, they'll get Chicago's pick in 26 if it's 9 through 30, okay? 2027, they own their own. Again, they also own Atlanta's pick. And then also if the Charlotte thing's not settled, same stipulations, 9 through 30, they'll get it. Okay, 2028, they own the swap rights. For Boston's, if it's 2 through 30. 2029, they own their own. 2030, they get the most. So the most favorable of San Antonio, Dallas, and Minnesota, 2 through 30, will go to, let me see, will go to San Antonio. And then the least favorable of San Antonio and Dallas will go to Dallas. So 2030 is kind of funky, but it looks like San Antonio will get 2 picks. 2031, they get their own and then or swap rights with Sacramento. And then they also get Minnesota's 2031 pick as well, okay? So that's the San Antonio Spurs. Now, if you believe I missed out on something with the Spurs, comment down below your opinion about the Spurs, or if you just want to have open dialogue with me about the Spurs. You know, I'm always open to open dialogue, okay? So that's the San Antonio Spurs. Next team is going to be the Houston Rockets. One second. Now, Houston last year, before I start on Houston, I want to let you guys know, please, I'm not even going to say please, but you should really check out my audio podcast from last summer. I'm telling you, I did an amazing job forecasting last season, and I talked a lot about the Rockets. A lot. Okay, and Ime Udoka was on my Coach of the Year ballot last year. I even said that they were going to have an improved year. You got to check it out. Link is in the description below. Scroll down. It's on Spotify. I think I did about 3 or 4 episodes. You got to listen to it, okay? But anyways, let's dive into the Houston Rockets. Houston last year finished 41-41. Offensive rating finished 20th. Defensive rating finished 9th. Their contract situation, they're under both aprons. Fred VanVleet has, so the team has a team option on Fred VanVleet next summer. I believe it's going to get declined. I'll tell you why in a second. Another player has 1 year left on his deal, Steven Adams. Jalen Green is a restricted free agent, so contract year for him. Alperen Şengün is a restricted free agent, so contract year for him as well. Jabari Smith is extension eligible next summer. Jeff Green has 1 year left on his deal. Jock Landale has a non-guaranteed deal for next summer. Jayshawn Tate has 1 year left on his deal. Aaron Holiday has a team option. Tari Eason is extension eligible next summer as well. So Houston has a lot to decide there. Rookie expectations for this team. Reed Sheppard, I talked about him in my pre-draft episode. If you decide to go check out that episode, just keep in mind the person who I had on my pod, his audio was horrible. Mine was pretty solid. I would go check out what I had to say about Reed Sheppard in my pre-draft and in my post-draft. I talked about him a lot. But yeah, so I'm going to tell you a little about Reed Sheppard. So my opinion about my expectations for Reed Sheppard is I expect him to make an instant impact off the bench for this team. Most likely, he'll be starting at the beginning of next season once Fred VanVleet is gone. Like I said, he has a team option. I expect them to decline that. They're not looking to pay Fred VanVleet no $40 million next year, okay? Let's be real here. I've been saying it for a while now that I thought he was the best guard at Kentucky. I know a lot of people are big fans of Rob Dillingham, but I always was somebody that saw Reed Sheppard. I thought his basketball IQ was higher than Rob Dillingham, and even physically, he's a lot more stockier and a little bit taller than Rob Dillingham too. So I liked him a lot more as a point guard. And me myself, I played point guard growing up, and so I think I do a pretty good job at analyzing point guards. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Reed Sheppard. Okay, I think next season he'll be starting. Team's floor/ceiling. If you're just now checking out my episode, I want to let you know I'm being vague. I don't want to give away my personal opinion on the Rockets. I will be doing that at a later date, at a later episode. But yeah, so just know I'm being vague a little bit, okay? I think this team floor is the play-in. I think their ceiling is a first-round competitive series, okay? Now, my overall opinion about the Rockets, I've been a fan of the Rockets for a little bit over 3 years now. I'm not a fan, like a fan of the Rockets, but I've been liking what they've been doing for 3 years now, okay? I've been a big fan of them. I think they really have an opportunity to really put themselves going into the latter half of this decade and then going into early next decade. I think they really have a chance to be a constant top 2, top 3 team in the West. But I believe it starts this season. I believe this season is ultra critical for this team because they have to decide if they're going to pay Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün or a combination of both. But eventually, within the next, not next summer, but summer after that and the summer after that, then they're going to have to start paying guys like Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore. So that team's going to get extremely expensive. So, yeah, obviously in technical terms, they can afford all these guys. But we all know money talks, okay? And does this ownership want to go into the second apron for all those guys? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I do believe this season's the beginning because I don't believe they will keep all these guys. I believe there's a lot of personalities on this team, a lot of players that I think but sees themselves as a number 1 option or number 2 option or number 3 option. But I just named to you guys, they have about 5-6 guys, okay? So something's got to give. You know, we're going to need players to accept certain roles, and I just don't believe all these guys are going to be able to do that. I mean, and some of you guys may get mad at me for saying that, but personally, how I see it, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And what we know, just looking back on NBA history, is when you have a team full of young, promising players like this, things happen, personalities show themselves, demanding the ball or locker room or practice. Things show itself, as time goes on. And a lot of these guys are extremely young, extremely promising, but I do think they're going to have to make a decision. And I think it begins maybe not during this season, but this season's going to be telling, because I just named to you, I told you they got to decide on Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. But also, like I said, Jabari Smith will be extension eligible. It doesn't mean he has to be extended, but he will be extension eligible as well. So he's playing for money. And then also those 2 players are also playing for potential super max deals or max out contracts, So it's going to be interesting, okay? Houston, I would say, for me, is going to be one of the top 5 teams that I'm going to be paying extreme close attention to, because I do believe this team is going to have the potential, no doubt, to be at the top ilk of the league from 2025 all the way to probably 2032, 2033, okay? So no doubt this is a very important year for this team, in my opinion. They're going to have to make a decision there, okay? Players to watch for me. Let's get right into it. I'm pumped up. I ain't going to lie. Jalen Green, I just said it. He was hooping when Şengün was out of the lineup. Some people say, oh, that's not the case. If you're watching the games, it played a part. You could see the floor was a little bit more open for Jalen Green. He was playing with house money. He was feeling himself. He got his little girlfriend pregnant. I ain't going to dive into that. But he was juiced, okay? Jalen Green was juiced. And I do expect him to come out and hoop this year. My thing, and I talked to my friend off the record about this. He was trying to tell me Jalen Green was an all-star level player, and I was like, no, he's not. I don't believe his last 3 years have shown me he's an all-star player. And that's simply because of his production and what he's shown me on the court as well, okay? So statistically and eye test-wise, I don't believe he's an all-star, but I do believe this season, if he's going to make that leap to becoming one, it's going to be this year during that contract year, But yeah, and the reason why I say he's not an all-star level player too, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know for a fact Jalen Green is about a 42% shooter from the field. And for a shooting guard, that's not good. To me, so let's say you're like 6'1". Okay, if you're like 6'1", then that's okay, 6'1", 6'2", I get it. 42% from the field is okay. It's still not good, but it's okay. But for somebody that's 6'5", 6'4", 42% from the field is not okay, in my opinion, by no stretch of the imagination. Somebody of his size should be shooting somewhere between, I would say, 44 to 46%. Now, you may say, oh, 2% is not that much, not that big of a deal. But it is a big deal when we're talking about, when we really dive into it, when it comes down to those moments in games. That 2% makes a big difference, okay? And my real basketball fans and real basketball and people that are really into basketball analytics and stuff, they understand what I'm saying. So that's why I say Jalen Green's not all-star quite yet. But I think this year he needs to improve those numbers, okay? I know defensively he was showing a little bit of promise in the back end of the year, so I expect him to be even a little bit better this year, because I know Ime Udoka is defense first. So he'll be somebody I'll be keeping my eyes on, okay, is Jalen Green. I really want to see him because physically he has the physical tools to be an all-star level player. But I just don't think he's there right now. But this year is the year I think he's going to have an immense opportunity to become one. So, yeah, next player is his counterpart, the other dude that's also trying to get paid. It's Alperen Şengün. Alperen Şengün, his defensive, he's not that good defensively per se. He does get into the passing lane, so I will give that to him. But rim protection-wise, he's not that good. Houston last year in block percentage finished 23rd, which is, in percentage-wise, they finished 5.2%. I know having Steven Adams will help, but Steven Adams is not going to be there long-term. So that's why I said Alperen Şengün, I'm hoping, maybe even learning from Steven Adams how to guard better in the pick and roll and protect the rim. I'm hoping to see him grow in that area, okay? So that's something I'll be looking out for him. Another player is Jabari Smith. I'm a big fan of Jabari Smith personally. I think physically he has the tools to be a matchup nightmare. I really would like to see his shot attempts to increase personally. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe last year he only averaged, I think, like 10 to 11 shots a game. I personally like to see him take maybe the second most shots on this team. I know some people that may be crazy to say that, but I do see that potential in Jabari Smith. I think he's a matchup nightmare, and I think he has the potential to be one, to be honest with you. He's not there yet, but I think he for sure has the ilk to get there, no doubt in my mind. But I would really like to see his shot attempts come up, maybe to somewhere this next year, at least up to maybe 15 to 16 a game, is what I would really like to see. Next player I'll also be keeping players to watch for me is Dylan Brooks. He needs to be taking less shots, okay? Last year he took 11 shots. He needs to be taking 6 to 5 shots, okay? I'm just going to keep it real simple with him. And there's other players that I can talk about. Tari Eason is a player. I think he has the opportunity to be the best defensive player on this team and to potentially make all defensive teams. I feel the same about Amen Thompson as well. Him improving his shooting is another thing. Cam Whitmore, does Cam Whitmore learn how to be more of a team player? I think last year he was more of a ball hog a little bit, but it was his first year in the NBA, okay? So I'm not mad at him, and I really like Cam Whitmore. But can he learn how to be more so working in the team's confinement, of working within the team is something I'll be looking out for with him. But yeah, there's so much about Houston, okay? There's a lot to like about this team. I want to talk about their draft capital. So Houston's draft capital, in my opinion, 2025, it's very messy, okay? They basically can decide if they want to keep their pick or Phoenix pick. Other than that, it goes to Brooklyn if it's Houston 1 through 10. So really funky stipulations there. 2026, they keep it 1 through 4. Otherwise, the two most favorable of Houston's 5 through 30, the Clippers and OKC goes to OKC. Then the other one goes to Philly. 2027, they get their own or swap rights with Brooklyn. And then they also get Phoenix picks in 2027. 2028, they keep their own. 2029, most favorable of Houston, Dallas, and Phoenix. Goes to Brooklyn, I believe. No, I'm sorry. I believe they keep 2 of them, and then the other one goes to Brooklyn. 2030 and 2031, they keep their own picks. Houston, I think, obviously, they're trying to keep Phoenix's picks as kind of a carrot, because I do believe that they want to I believe they want Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. Okay? I think that's why they're doing that with Phoenix. We'll see what happens there. Okay? So Houston, if you feel like I didn't cover certain things, or even if you like what I said about Houston, leave down in the comment section below about the Rockets, okay? Next team is the Memphis Grizzlies. They finished last season 27-55. Offensive rating finished 30th. Defensive rating finished 12th. And I'm going to take a brief moment, take some water, and then we'll go into their contract situations. So Memphis's contract situation. They're under both aprons. They're barely under the first apron, though, by $1 million. Contract situation, Luke Kennard has 1 year left on his deal. Santi Aldama and Jake LaRavia, they're both restricted free agents next summer. Rookie expectations, I kind of just talked about if you're just tuning in. I was fortunate enough to go to the national title game this year. It was Purdue versus UConn, so I was fortunate enough to watch Zach Edey up close and personal. And I think Zach Edey is no doubt going to be the starter for this team. I think Jaren Jackson plays a lot better at the 4. No doubt. That's when he won the Defensive Player of the Year. Efficiency-wise was a lot better there. I believe if Edey can give this team at least 60 to 65 games, that's a win. 65 games obviously is going to qualify him for Rookie of the Year. And I believe he has an opportunity to put up a stat line of like 12 points, 9 rebounds, and probably 2 to 2.5 blocks a game. And I think he's going to be, if he can give a stat line like that and the Memphis Grizzlies are back in the top 5 of the West, I think he has a prime position to win this award, okay? But it's obviously going to hinder on him giving us 65 games, I think is the biggest thing here. But I've seen people try to laugh at Edey, say he's a fraud. He's more just a Boban. He's not Boban, okay? He's not. I watched this kid 3 years in college. I watched him. And then obviously I watched him live in person. Zach Edey's more than that. he's more than a Boban, okay? I think he is a player that, for his NBA career, probably is going to be someone that's always going to be about that 25 to 27 minutes a game. It's hard for me to envision him playing 35 minutes a game, but I think he will always be between that 25 to 30 minutes a game in his career. And this year, I expect him to start for this team, okay? So that is Edey. And also, I also want to let you guys know, Zach Edey's someone that I think is going to surprise a lot of people with his lateral quickness, being able to guard out on guards in the pick and roll. So Zach Edey's somebody that I think he's gonna earn his respect early on in the season. So if you're just now tuning into my episode, so the team's floor and ceiling, I'm being very vague with, and that's simply just because I don't want to give away my personal opinion too much. So just keep that in mind as I tell you this, okay? Because at a later date, I will give my actual predictions. So the team's floor, in my opinion, is a first-round competitive series. I think the team's ceiling is reaching the NBA Finals. Another opinion I have about the Memphis Grizzlies, I do expect them to get back to that top five range in the West. Again, I'm trying not to give too much information, but I think they are going to have an opportunity to get back to that top five. I do think Taylor Jenkins also, I know last year they had a bunch of injuries, so obviously their turnaround is going to look crazy dramatic if they're more healthy this year. But he's, on that merit alone, he will be in the running, I think, for Coach of the Year. If they go from 27 wins, let's say they get to 54 wins, he's going to be in the running, okay? So, you know, like it, love it, or hate it, I think that's what's going to happen. I also think this team literally finished 12th in defense, and Jaren Jackson and Marcus Smart each only played 66 games. I think this team, for sure, adding Zach Edey, I think this team for sure is going to probably get back into that top 8 defensively. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. Yeah, Vernon Williams is actually going to be out for the first 4 weeks. Well, he's going to be out for 4 weeks. So I think that's going to sting a little bit. But having him in the lineup with Jaren Jackson, with Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, I think, is a solid defender. This team, I think, is getting back into the top 8, no doubt. No doubt. I have no doubt in my mind. I would really like to see them get a bigger wing, per se. Yeah, they did draft G.G. Jackson, which I talked about G.G. Jackson literally in my audio podcast last summer. I said that he was a steal in the second round. Go ahead and check that out, man. Down in the description, I'm telling you, listen to it. Listen to it. And if anything, just listen to the post, literally either my pre-draft episode or my post-draft episode, okay? Or both. Listen to those, okay? Actually, listen to the post. Listen to the post-draft episode, and you'll see I talked about G.G. Jackson, literally. But I think we'll see. We'll see if defensively, if he can, you know, because G.G. last year obviously showed us burst, and I knew he was going to be really good because he was literally a highly rated kid out of high school. Just at South Carolina, it just wasn't a good program for him. It just was not good. But I knew he was going to be a plus player. But, yeah, I would like to see Memphis get a little bigger on the wing. Obviously, they had hopes for Zaire Williams. He flamed out. But I would like to see them get a really solid wing. But who knows? It might just be Gigi. Gigi might be able just to be that 3-man for them. It's something I'll be kind of paying attention to as well. So, players to watch for Memphis. I just named him is Vincent Williams. Or is it Vernon? I forgot this dude's name. I think it's Vince. I think it's Vince Williams. But, yeah, he's going to be out. I'm excited, though, to see what he does defensively. He was really, really great defensively last year, but I'm excited to see him alongside all these other players coming back healthy. Really being next to players like Ja and stuff. Like, I'm just excited to watch him play when he gets back. Another player is Brandon Clark. I think people forgot about Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark was hooping before he got injured. Last year was his first time being back. I think this year he'll be even more, you know, he'll be a lot better. He'll have a full season after the injury. I think he's for sure going to be able to bounce back and really, I think, obviously give him some time because last year only played about 6-7 games. But I think by December, people are going to be remembering, dang, I forgot about Brandon Clark. But I think Brandon Clark's going to remind those who forgot about him, because I didn't forget about him. Those who forgot about him, I think he's going to remind people like, hey, I'm still here. You know, I think he's going to be great for this team. Another player, Scottie Pippen Jr. Does his contract become a standard one? I'm interested to see, does his contract become a standard one? Does he become the backup for this team? I know they got Williams, but Williams is not your essential point guard. I think Williams is more of a 2 or 3 guard, okay? Depending what lineup you throw out there, because he's not that tall. He's only 6'4". But can Scottie Pippen be that backup for John Morant? It's something I'll be kind of keeping my eyes on and see if he can cut the rotation. I know they cut D Rose, but D Rose obviously, you know, retired and whatnot. But yeah, so that's Memphis. And now I want to talk about their draft capital a little bit. So draft capital, Memphis literally 2024 they own their own pick. 2024, they own the swap rights for the least favorable of Washington and Phoenix as well. That's kind of a weird stipulation. 2025 through 2030, they own their own picks. So Memphis has flexibility. If they want to go out and trade for some player, they could go do that if they wanted to. Yeah, so that's Memphis. If you feel like I missed out on something on Memphis, or you even liked what I said about Memphis, comment down below, and we can have an open dialogue and talk about the Memphis Grizzlies more if you want, okay? So next team and last team, it's going to be the New Orleans Pelicans. Last year, they finished 49-33. 11th in offensive efficiency, 7th in defensive efficiency, and their contract situation, they're under both aprons. Brandon Ingram, obviously the shadow in the room, has 1 year left on his deal. I expect him to be traded at some point, to be real. Trey Murphy's a restricted free agent, so contract year for Trey Murphy. Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, has 1 year left. Daniel Theis, 1 year left. Javonte Green, 1 year left. Jose Alvarado, 1 year left. Antonio Reeves is on a non-guaranteed contract for next season. Their rookie expectation, they drafted Yves Messi. He's a center from Baylor, if you're unfamiliar with Yves Messi. I'm interested to see where he fits in this rotation for the centers because they don't have a center really, like a starter center. Are they going to run Zion at the starting five? Are they going to let Messi do it? They also received a stretch big man named Carlo. He's from Bosnia. He's a stretch big man. He can shoot. He's a stretch big that can shoot, so keep that in mind. He might end up starting. I'm interested to see what Messi does. I think at worst, he'll probably get maybe 10, 15 minutes a game, or maybe if he's horrible, nothing. I watched him a little bit in Summer League. I watched him a little bit at Baylor. But it'll be interesting to see where New Orleans goes with that because that dude from Bosnia, I haven't got to watch film on him. Per se, I watched a little bit about him. But he can shoot. And I think shooting big next to Zion, woo! Imagine how open that floor is going to be, man. But yeah, so that's Yves Messi, okay? Team's floor/ceiling, I'm being vague here just so you guys know. I don't want to give away too much of my personal opinion. I will be doing that pretty soon in another episode. So remind you, I'm being vague, okay? Team's floor/ceiling, I think their floor is the play-in. Ceiling is a second-round competitive series. My opinion, I really do like that they added DeJounte Murray. I feel like they still have that gaping hole at center we just talked about. One of four players is going to start there for them. Either Zion, Yves Messi, Daniel Theis, or the Carlos dude from Bosnia is going to be one of their starting bigs, I believe. So that's the big thing for them I'll be kind of paying attention to. New Orleans has a lot. They still have assets, so I'm interested to see what they do with that. They have Brandon Ingram as a trade chip. What do they do with that? I personally am a huge fan of Willie Green as a coach. Do they go out and make a trade for a player like Miles Turner maybe? I just talked about a stretch big next to Zion. Miles Turner has 1 year left on his deal. Pretty friendly money. You know, maybe they want to pay, Miles Turner something just to keep your eyes on, We'll see what happens there with that. I did have Willie Green on my ballot for Coach of the Year last year as another person. But, yeah, I'm a big fan of Willie Green. I like this team is not done morphing, Obviously, Trey Murphy still has growth that he can show. I really like players like, we're just going to go to my players, okay? Because I don't want to say the dude's name. So, my players to watch for, I was getting ready to say his name. I'm going to say his name now, is Jordan Hawkins. I'm a big fan of Jordan Hawkins. He's a sniper, okay? Pure sniper from UConn, 6'4". He's got a strap. No more Najee Marshall. No more Dyson Daniels. I expect for sure Jordan Hawkins to make a leap. He'll get more minutes, no doubt. I think his minutes will probably be closer to 22 to 25 range. I expect his three-point numbers to improve. Last year, he shot 37%. The dude is a sniper. I'm telling y'all, he is a sniper. His numbers are coming up from 37%. I promise you. His numbers are at least going to go to 39 to 42%. You book it. Book it, okay? The dude is a straight sniper, okay? I'm going to keep saying it. And I even talked about him last year on my audio podcast. I talked about Jordan Hawkins, man. Go check it out in the description below. I'm telling you guys, it's great. Like, I did amazing. I don't ever toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn because I forecasted so much about the first and second year players in the NBA, okay? So that's Jordan Hawkins. Another player is Zion. Zion was hooping the back end of the year. Zion, I think, is going to also make another leap this year. Zion is in his sleep giving us 27 27 points on like 58% shooting from the field. Insanely efficient numbers. Zion just staying in shape is obviously the biggest thing here, okay? I really would love to see him really assert himself and take at least 18 to 21 shots a game and just be a force, dude. There's no reason Zion shouldn't be averaging over 30 a game and be competing for the scoring title in the NBA. Okay, there's no reason to me, in my opinion. Okay, so Zion, I expect Zion to come out and just be dominant, man. Like, I just want to see him dominate. And the other player, I just talked about him, is Trey Murphy. Contract, obviously it's a contract year for BI, contract year for him as well. I think they're going to get rid of BI and lean more into a player like Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy, again, I talked about him last year as well. Trey Murphy's a sniper. I would like to see his shot attempts come up. You know who he kind of reminds me of a little bit early on? He's a better shooter than him. But he kind of reminded me of what Mikal Bridges was in Phoenix a little bit, in essence of being a 3-and-D type of player. I think Trey Murphy this year, I would like to see him show more off the dribble scoring is what I would like to see from Trey Murphy. And I think them getting rid of BI may help with that a little bit. But yeah, so he's somebody I'll be keeping my eyes on for as well this year. Now, the team's draft capital. This team, 2025, they have their own, and then Milwaukee's, if it falls 1 through 4, 2026. So I'm sorry. Yeah, Milwaukee gets, so they get if it's 1 through 4, I believe. 2026, own or swap rights with Milwaukee. 2027, the most favorable of New Orleans and Milwaukee. Most favorable of New Orleans and Milwaukee. Then the other, and Atlanta. We'll go to Atlanta. I don't know. Those stipulations are weird. Real weird. 28 through 2031, they own their own picks. So, like I said, they have flexibility, okay? I expect this team to make a move. Now, I want to thank you for checking out my episode. This is the PJ Hoop Podcast. If you liked what I said in this pod, or you disagree with what I said in this pod, or even if you want to talk more about what I said in this pod, comment down in the comment section below. And like I said, I'm always open dialogue. And I look forward to next episode with you guys, okay? And I want to thank you for checking out the PJ Hoop Podcast. Again, I'm your host, PJ. And I want to tell you guys, PJ out.